And then the other thing, people a lot of times will have the intention of digitizing their collection so that they can throw the old stuff away. But what we find is that that's not good practice because your printed collection actually is a backup to your digital collection or vice versa, however you want to think about it. So we encourage people not to get all gung ho and try and throw their old media away. So we have multiple collections. By the time we're done, we have the same material and multiple collections. It's all totally organized and easy to add to whatever your digital gadget of choice is today. And then it'll be ready to convert to whatever we're using 50 years from now. I always tell people, think about what we're doing in 50 years, right? Think about whether this photo is going to be valuable to your family or someone you care about in 50 years. Think about whether what we have done in digitizing or protecting your collection is going to work for the next owner 50 years from now. And that's really what the problem we're trying to solve.
Hey, and welcome to the Speak Organized podcast. I'm your host, Melanie Summers, professional organizer, ADHD organizing specialist, and your go-to gal for all things pro organizing business. I like to speak organized to give you the tools to conquer your clutter, live life with more purpose, and learn all about the business of tidying. Do me a favor, if you haven't already, go ahead and pull out your device and tap that subscribe button so that you become a member of the Speaker fam. And as you get value out of today's episode and you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that thumbs up and tap the notification bell so that you're notified whenever we post new content every single week. And if you're an Apple Podcast user, you can go ahead and leave us a rave 5-star review, which helps boost our ratings and helps the channel grow so that we can reach more amazing people just like you looking to get into the professional organizing industry. And I want you to join us in the free Facebook community, the I Speak Organized Professional Organizers Network. If you have questions and you're just looking for some of that genuine connection and you need to get some advice, that's the perfect place to be. The information to join that group is going to be down in the description of the video and the podcast show notes.
The main mission here at I Speak Organized is to give you the best quality tools and resources to level up your business and have a truly successful 6 or 7-figure business that doesn't suck away all of your time. So if you're brand new to all of this and it seems very overwhelming, you don't really know where to start, you have come to the right place. I am your go-to gal for all things pro organizing business. If you're afraid that you aren't enough, like you don't have enough experience or you don't really have the goods to bring to the table to charge what other people charge or whatever story you happen to be telling yourself, I am here to help you understand that you can be exceptional with the right tools and training. So in just a few minutes, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about how I can help you with that. But in the meantime, let's get into this juicy interview. All right, my friends, please join me in welcoming this lovely pink-clad lady. This is Darla DeMorrow, and she is the owner and lead organizer for Heartwork Organizing based just outside of Philadelphia. And we're going to be talking all about really lucrative service that you can add to your business. And she's going to school us up on how it works and talk about all the fun stuff. So Darla, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yay! Super excited. I want to just first start out by introducing you or having you rather introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit more about your journey into professional organizing and what led you specifically to wanting to specialize in photo and keepsake organization.
Yeah, so this is 20 years of organizing, being in business for me. So we are celebrating, actually, I guess it's technically 21 years now that we're in 2025. See, I get all emotional and all tongue-tied with with talking about being in business for 20 years because it takes a bit to get there. And I started my career, my business after a corporate career, like so many of us do. Did not have a vision for what 20 years ahead looked like. So I was doing home organizing, which we still do. Mm-hmm. And about 12, 13 years ago, I lose track, be closer to 15 now, but I actually found photo organizing and said, God, I don't want to do that. It's absolutely not what I want to do because it sounded too much like scrapbooking. And I was never a scrapbooker. I'm not a photographer, not a scrapbooker. But what I do love is people and telling their stories and helping people, solve big problems. I tell my team all the time, what we really are is professional problem solvers, no matter what we're doing. Mm-hmm. And so about 13 years ago, I actually was at a NAPO conference and this brand new group showed up. And it was, at that time, it was called APO. And they were recruiting people in to learn about photo organizing. And I thought, well, I don't really want to do that, but sure, I'll join for a year and I'll learn everything there is to know. And then I'll drop my membership. And
Mhm.
that didn't happen, because what happened really is that I found that there's a really cool intersection between technology and organizing. And if you remember where we were 13 years ago, I mean, not everybody was even walking around with a smartphone in their pocket.
Mhm.
And so the technology was really turning like crazy, right? It was just developing, and so many people were still just at the tail end of using their digital camera and just so many things if you roll the camera back to 12, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, I what I did was, over the years, I kind of did a slow and steady teaching myself how to handle photos, how to handle physical photos and then digital photos. And then as I grew my team over the years, we found that photo organizing was a great, in the office one day a week, something like that was a great way to offset the physical work that we were doing out in the field the other days. And then COVID hit. And
Mm.
overnight, my business went from like 20% photo organizing to 80% photo organizing, because we weren't really leaving the office, which was then in my house. So COVID really pushed us over the edge of making sure that we knew everything that we could possibly know about photo organizing. And, here 4 or 5 years later, our business is about 50-50 photo organizing and in person.
Awesome. Yeah, I want to point out just a few things that you said to those listening and watching. Primarily, that one, this is a service that can be added to your existing in home organizing services that you're already providing to offset the physical part. Because as we know, having you've been in the industry much longer than I have, the physical aspect can really take a toll over the years. And this is I feel a very smart future proofing move. You want to continue running your organizing business and have a very lucrative service. We'll talk about, the general take home or the general cost of what people are actually paying you to organize their memorabilia and photos. It's very lucrative. It's a smart business move, in my opinion, and something to consider. It doesn't need to be your entire business, but it could be something you can start small with. There's various different services. I know you're going to tell us all about what that kind of looks like and assessing the scope. But I do just want to point out, for those people listening who might be sitting where Darla was 12, 15 years ago, saying, oh, I don't want to do that. That sounds awful. Like, photo organizing is not for me. Just listen to this with an open mind, hear what we're going to talk about today and sort of the back end logistics of that. So now I want to kind of talk about assessing the scope. So, because you're dealing with, honestly, in my opinion, too, one of the most difficult categories of stuff to manage for a client, it's the sentimental stuff. It's the stuff that nobody really knows what to do with. And like, the kids don't always want it. We got to figure out how to make it accessible, all this. So, when you're beginning the organizing of a lifetime of photos and videos and whatever other memorabilia you're working with, because it's not just that, what
Right.
initial steps do you recommend to assess the scope of a project when you're going to start with a client?
Well, more than ever, say more than even what we do with home organizing, is we always start with the end in mind. So I'm always asking the clients, what are you trying to do here? What's your end game? What are you really trying to accomplish? And that will guide how we move forward. I've had a couple of projects just in the last month where the clients are literally throwing photos at me across the table, like, what do we do with this? What do we do with this? And it turns out they don't even want the photos, but they desperately want the videos off
Mm,
of the old VHS tapes. And they think of that usually as a separate project. We think of it as the same project. So just finding out what the client wants and asking, what is your end game? That is a very, very important first step that you don't, I mean, you really should ask it no matter what kind of business you're in, but you don't always ask it when you walk into a bedroom closet or a bathroom and they say, I want this organized. You're like,
mhm,
okay, I can do that, because you kind of know what that looks like. But with photos, I think you really sometimes have to peel back that onion and just say, okay, I'm here to talk about your photos, but tell me what you want
mhm,
first. And then once you do that, the next obvious step for us as organized people, and not so obvious to our clients, is to gather all the memories, a lifetime of photos, a lifetime of keepsakes and videos, all in one place. Because your clients, my clients don't always know. They usually don't know what they have. They got some from their parents when they passed on. They have some important things hanging here and stashed in that closet. And I was with a client just last week and she kept going, and there's this other album, and she kept referencing it. And I said, where is it? And she goes, I don't know, but I have everything on the table, but I'm missing stuff. And I said, well, clearly we don't have everything then. But she only came to that conclusion while we were talking about it. So this one particular client kept saying, this is everything, but then there's 10 other boxes. And I kept saying, well, tell me about the 10 other boxes. I need
Right.
to see them. So the clients they're often just completely overwhelmed by what they have or what they thought they had, what they might have. And gathering it all in one place, like on a dining room table or a project surface, is really a good place to start, because then you can handle things and then you're not talking in theoreticals. I always talk to my team about, what we do is really sorting socks. It's exactly the same as sorting socks, but it really confuses people because it's not socks.
Mhm.
We think of it that way. I mean, literally, I'm going to put the red socks with the red socks and the blue socks with the blue socks. Photos are kind of the same way when you break down the process, but to the client, it doesn't feel like that.
Mhm. Right. Yeah. Because there's the memory and the emotion and the sentiment attached to it. And even if it's a blurry duplicate or triplicate of, the same exact photo, it can be really tough. And you have to be prepared if you're going to offer that service, obviously, to deal with the emotional aspect of it and the patience necessary and the time commitment to a project like that. But if you're trying to fill your calendar, if you're trying to have something that's a little less labor intensive, that's going to bring in the same amount, if not more money, and just diversify. And, once you've organized a client's entire home, I bet you there's some memorabilia and some photos that you haven't gone through that they really should think about. And so that can be the next step. And so let's kind of talk about maybe the next part of this. So you touched on how to assess the scope, making sure you get everything all into one place, and then you start helping them with the sorting and categorization. So if you could offer us just, the bird's eye view of what strategies you suggest for
Mhm.
efficiently sorting and categorizing both print and digital photos, that'd be super helpful.
Yeah. Well, actually, you touched on the first question that we need to decide with each client is, are they going to do the work or are we going to do the work? And it is surprising for clients sometimes. In fact, I can't tell you how many times people have said, "Oh, my goodness, you will do this for me, and I don't even have to do it. Here, please take it."
Mhm.
And so, a couple of years ago, we actually moved into an office outside of my home because we now hold client assets and organize them without the client present. And if you've never organized a photo project before, that may just seem a really foreign idea. But there's a lot of information in the photos themselves that will help us, my team, who's really good at this, organize a set of photos. Now, we have clients who can't imagine, or at the beginning of the process at least, can't imagine handing something off. And so they want to be very hands on, or they want to learn how to do something. And so we, in those cases, will come alongside them, maybe do the first session in their home. And, I love to let them kind of get themselves overwhelmed, because as soon as they get to that point, I can say, look, I can take care of all this for you. And I don't need you to stress about, does this photo from 1972 relate to this photo from 1973? Who knows at this point, right? But once we organize an entire collection for the client, they can very easily go through and make decisions at the decision points where they want to, but allowing them to know that, hey, we're your photo organizer. Just like you don't have to be in the room for me to organize your socks, you don't have to be in the room for me to organize your photos. Doesn't mean you can't be involved or you shouldn't be involved or you'll never be involved in this project. There are points where you can involve yourself again if you want to.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that advice. I think it's good advice for photo organizing and also just organizing in general. I really boast with my coaching clients and all the members of my membership program to push for done for you services whenever possible. Once you feel comfortable with your process, it gives you a little bit more control over the time estimate and everything else, because you're not having to deal with your client's decision making speed as much, and you can kind of do a lot of things on their behalf. And it's good to know that there are processes and software and technology and tools in place that can allow you to do that with something as personal as photos. So that's great, and I'm really interested to learn a little bit more about your process. So let's talk about the decluttering and the decision making, because that's the part where you still do need the client's input. So how can individuals make decisions about which photos to keep, which ones to digitize. You can talk about, I don't know what aspects of photo organizing your company offers. Not everybody likes the digitization aspect, and you
Yeah.
outsource all these things. So when there's
So we
sentimental,
actually,
let us know.
So
Sorry. Go ahead.
we use soup to nuts, but we didn't to start with. Really, we started with, I don't know, probably organizing photos, right? Shoe boxes of photos. But at this point, years into it, we have scanners on site in my office. But we love to do large complex collections. And what that means is we take in the Rubbermaid bins that people literally throw at us and say, please, this has been in my basement or my parents' basement. I have no idea what to do with it and I don't want to take it home. And so we'll take this to our office. We'll do exactly what, your organizing friends would imagine is we're going to put things into piles of like items, right? So photos with photos, VHS tapes with VHS tapes. We've got USB drives and framed photos or separate from the ones in the envelopes, so we're going to be making piles. I say piles, but we're going to be making groups of the similar photo material. And our process is we then, in my office, we will then take an inventory and that turns into an estimate for the client. So at that point in the process, we know what we have and how complex or easy the project looks to be. We've already gotten some information from the client about how involved or not involved they want to be. And at that point, we start sorting. And the main question everybody wants to ask is, how do you sort? What's your process, or what does sorting mean in the photo project? And for us, it means a timeline. So we put the oldest photos, sort of at the beginning of the timeline, and then we're sorting everything by year so that we have usually if you have a really good collection, the oldest photo is going to be somewhere around 1880, 1890, early 1900s.
Whoa.
And oh yeah, it goes all the way back. And so we don't always know the year, but we can usually peg the decade. And then we'll get into some of the, not quite the newer photos, but vintage photos as opposed to the really antique ones. And at that point, we're getting years, right? So now we know it's in 1941 versus in 1942. And so we're going to put that timeline together, just like the one that you're used to seeing on your phone. And that's, so, people who aren't sorting photos on a regular basis, sometimes people will say, but I want to sort by kid, or I had this other way that I wanted to sort. We found that that's just not ideal. Knowing that we could put a timeline together in a pretty quick fashion, it makes sense to people when they see it. But until the client sees it, they're like, well, how should I do it? Should I do it this way or that way? Or, we have a lot of moms always want to separate by kids so they can hand the photos of the kids to each kid.
Right.
But that only works for kid one. And only until the second one comes along. So we put things in timeline order. There's a lot of information on the photos themselves, the front of the photo, the back of the photo, the content of the photo, even things like license plates and street signs and birthday candles. And there's just a ton of information in the photo, even down to the paper that it was printed on, whether it was square, rectangular, whether it's got they're called deckled edges. It looks like somebody's cut them out with, fancy scissors.
Oh, sure.
Those are the antique photos from like the 1940s, 50s. Those, all of that is information that helps us build that timeline. And while we're doing that, we're also putting together information about the family. Oh, I see the mom and dad got married this year. And I see the, first kid was born in that year. And then there was a second kid 2 years later. And so we're actually capturing all of that in a spreadsheet. So for a lot of families that like genealogy, that's great. They may have some of that already, but a lot of families don't. So we're actually building that first set of genealogy for them, and then we give that to them as well as part of the project.
All right, fam, imagine this. You are sitting here in 6 months, sitting right where you are now, and you're running your own professional organizing business that is effortlessly scaling to 6 figures. How awesome would that be? But let me guess, you're sitting here today and you've got that voice of imposter syndrome whispering in your ear, who am I to do this? Well, let me tell you, I have been there, and it is not only possible to overcome those doubts, it is essential because your future clients are looking for you, not anybody else, you. So, how do you scale a 6-figure business? It's easy. You stick with me. I got you. It is my honor to introduce you to my Empowered Organizer membership community, which is a game changer for turning your passion into, if you want, a full-time 6-figure gig. We've got done-for-you scripts and resources, collaborative monthly coaching calls, and a supportive community to fast-track your success by avoiding all the superfluous fluff and, of course, all the dumb mistakes that I've made over the years so that you don't have to make the same ones. You're welcome. Head to melaniesummerscoaching.com/empowered-organizer to learn more and enroll today. And don't worry, it's kind of like your favorite streaming subscription service. You can cancel anytime and renew when you want. And if that weren't convincing enough, let me give you just a little taste of the treasure trove that you'll find when you head to ispeakorganized.com/courses. First, you'll definitely want to check out my overbooked course, packed with golden nuggets to help you get clients and fill your calendar so that you can work full-time as a professional organizer. Or if you need a little personalized guidance, my one-on-one coaching sessions are perfect for getting your most burning questions answered, helping you move forward confidently. Or how about I save you loads of precious time with my professional organizer forms pack, 9 done-for-you customizable forms, including a client agreement, so that you can start taking paying clients ASAP. And don't miss my ChatGPT prompt guide with over 750 prompts to optimize tasks like social media captions, blog posts, and more, engineered for success every time. Again, visit ispeakorganized.com/courses to explore all these options and more. Are you ready to take the leap? Visit the link. I know you want to.
Wow, just like the level of nuance and detail just in phase one in the decision making and sorting process alone is just, it's making my eyes cross. But it's fascinating. It's really cool. You can see how much care and attention and detail and education, necessary to go into this. And so now let's talk a little bit about digitization. Because that's like, a lot of the younger folks either want to turn the physical photos into digital versions to have a backup, or that's the way they want to, experience the photos in the future. And then we can also even talk about the fact that the younger clients, like if you work with influencers who have millions of photos on their phones and they need that collection just organized in and of itself, like that's a thing. So can you just to put that out there? So are there specific tools and software that you recommend for organizing digital photos and videos? What's your kind of go-to and all that?
Yeah. So I'll kind of name drop 3 that are important. We have all these little sort of one-trick ponies that might solve a different problem here or there, but we by and large do depend on the Apple photo system for a lot of clients. They already have it already. They're kind of using it. We find that if we can get them confident in using that Apple photo system, what we're doing is training them on how to play with their photos while we're doing the technical work to digitize their photos and get that timeline turned into something cool. So most people's, if they haven't already organized their older photos, most people's iPhone timeline goes back to about 2010-ish right now, maybe a couple of years before that, but usually somewhere between 2000 and 2010. But by the time we're done with their project, we can upload all of those photos going all the way back to 1890, right? And nobody had an iPhone in 1890, but we're scrolling. We can get back to, showing those photos. But one of my favorite party tricks is to pull out, I turned it off. So I didn't want it to ring while we were talking. But I'll pull out my iPhone and I will, in a couple of taps, I'll actually pull up my favorite picture of my grandmother in 1934. And I'm not scrolling, doing what what people do. They want to show you their last vacation photo. I'm like, tap, tap, tap. Here's my favorite photo of my grandmother. And it's sitting in 1934. It's not sitting like I, took the photo today. And that right there is, like I said, is kind of a party trick, but it's magic because I can find my prom picture, in that certain year. I can find my parents, important pictures. And that's what we want to get to, not only for our clients who might be, let's say 50 and over to paint with a broad brush, but also, for the kids, the adult children who are wanting to have their family photos, but they don't want the mess. They don't want the bulk. They don't want boxes of photos in their life. They just want the cool stuff where they enjoy all of the rest of their photos as well. And so once we've digitized, we actually load or help the clients load that lifetime or sometimes several lifetimes of photos onto their iPhone, more accurately the iCloud. So Apple Photos is a really important tool because so many people are already using it. We use some other tools to get our work done. And then, so I'll name drop Lightroom, but I that's all I'm going to say about it because it's something that we use. It is never a client tool. We don't think it's client friendly. And it's way more than most people need. But for people who don't have access to, or don't, for whatever reason, don't want to use the Apple iCloud and the Apple Photos program, we like Mylio. It provides a similar experience to the very cool features that you can get with Apple Photo, but it works really well for PC users, or
Mhm.
for people who are PC and iPhone users, or PC and Android. That fills the gap for us. And we do like that program. It's really complex. It's got complexity in it, but I think it's user friendly enough for most families, most people, to get their arms around if they want to do the cool features like face tagging and, building groups of photos that might turn into a printed album, something like that.
Yeah, very cool. That gives a kind of good overview. Obviously, there's many different things I'm sure that you use in terms of digital scanners and all of the things. I do want to bounce back to the aspect of preservation of physical media, because you mentioned that you get these big tubs, all different types of media, and it's not just photos. It could be reel to reel tape, it could be USBs that don't actually go to any computer that's in existence anymore, and you're trying to extract the data from stuff that you might not have the machine to do it. So let's talk about what are the best practices in terms of preserving those memories, printed photos, albums, family videos, to ensure their longevity, other than obviously just digitization. What do you guys
Yeah.
recommend?
So I still think we're at an interesting inflection point in history with technology, right? So there isn't one answer. There's not like one baseline of you must do X, Y, and Z to protect your materials. No matter what media you have, whether it's going back to the very old printed photos, which were usually actually mounted on like some sort of cardboard. So all the way through to the different types of printed photos over the years, and now into the digital age, there's not one platform or one place where you should be putting things. What best practices are is that you have a clean, organized print collection, and that you treat it carefully. When we hand back projects to our clients, we have these really beautiful boxes that we use. You can see them on my Instagram, but they're about the size of a boot box. So, like two shoe boxes put together, a little bigger.
Mhm.
And they are photo archive boxes that are really lovely. I like the look of the box. It fits in any decor. So the photos like to live where you live. So they don't want to be in basements, attics, and garages. They want to be in your living room, or at worst, maybe in your guest room closet.
Mhm.
So we want to put them in a storage device that's going to be comfortable and aesthetically pleasing in your home. So that's what these photo boxes do. We are turning away from the old bulky albums that your mom and grandma put together, because they are falling apart, the old ones, and they went through different trends and styles. So your grandmother's favorite cover, or the only one she could get her hands on, is not maybe going to fit into your living room decor. So again, making your photo collection accessible and fitting in with your home, we love to do that. And so just by going through those plastic bins that have been in your basement, you're going to be taking leaps and bounds towards making your photos accessible and protected. And then
Mhm.
the other thing, people a lot of times will have the intention of digitizing their collection so that they can throw the old stuff away. But what we find is that that's not good practice, because your printed collection actually is a backup to
Mhm.
your digital collection, or vice versa, however you want to think about it. So we encourage people not to get all gung ho and try and throw their old media away. So we have multiple collections. By the time we're done, we have the same material and multiple collections. It's all totally organized and easy to add to whatever your digital gadget of choice is today. And then it'll be ready to convert to whatever we're using, 50 years from now. I always tell
Mhm.
people, think about what we're doing in 50 years, right? Think about whether this photo is going to be valuable to your family or someone you care about in 50 years. Think about whether what we have done in digitizing or protecting your collection is going to work for the next owner 50 years from now. And that's really the problem we're trying to solve.
Mhm. Yeah, now let me ask you this, going completely off script. I know you probably get some photos that are in somewhat disrepair, maybe they're faded, cracked, something's going on. Do you also work in the restoration of those photos as well?
Yes. Yeah. We have team members who specialize in that for us. So we just did one, actually, a family from Puerto Rico, the original photos that had hung on the wall for years and years. Puerto Rico is a tropical climate, heat, water, all those things that do bad things to photos. So we got them and they were in really, really bad shape, restored them. And mom actually cried when
Yeah.
I mean, we're in the business. We always say we're in the business of making people cry in the very best way. so, so these photos that were treasured, absolutely treasured photos, but they were not only deteriorating, but they weren't great photos to begin with. We were actually able to clean them up, and they were better when we gave them back than probably the original ever was. And so that's a combination of of digitizing, right? So we digitize the photo, we digitally restore it, and then we actually reprinted several copies for the mom and cousins and everybody that wanted to have these very important photos of grandma and grandpa who are no longer there, on both sides, grandma and grandpa on both sides.
Wow. Yeah, that just sounds amazing. I'm going to continue to go off script just a little bit here too, because I want to talk a little bit about what your operation looks like now. You've mentioned a few times some team members with different specialities. Let's just get right down to the elephant in the room. So tell me a little bit more about your team. Tell me approximately like the general scope of like timeline of a project that you're experiencing and how much these people are spending on these projects. So you
Yeah.
can give me like low end and high end and
Yeah.
everything in between.
Well, so let's take that last one first. It's important. The line I use with clients, they call and say, "Oh, this sounds expensive. What's it going to be? Can you give me they call and say, "I've got a bunch of photos. Can you digitize them, and how much is it going to cost?"
Right.
I don't know, because I don't know what you're talking about yet. I haven't seen your project. So I've been doing this long enough. I will not put a number in the client's head on the first conversation, because I literally don't know what they're going to hide from me, what they're going to bring out. It is not an uncommon experience for us to go out and say, and they'll say, "Oh, this box is our photos." And then we get to talking and they're like, "Oh, well, let me show you what's in the basement." And it's like
Yep.
double the size of what was on their table when I walked in. So that's a pretty common occurrence. So anyway, the line I use with with people who are inquiring about a photo project is, I'll say, "Look, your project, as you've described it so far, is going to be in the thousands, not the hundreds. You can't give you any more detail than that until I see the project. But what I can tell you is that we scan all of our standard scans, which is just, by the way, between you and me, it's just one line item on like my price list, which I do not publish."
Mhm.
But I say to them in the first conversation, the one thing I can tell you is that our standard scans, which is not just scanning, we do a lot of work to those scans before we give them back to you, is 50 cents each.
Mhm.
So if you hand me a pile of 100 photos, minimum project is going to be $50. It's probably going to be double that because of all the additional things that you're going to want us to do, like restoration, like, putting them in a beautiful box and all these other things that we've talked about. But at the initial conversation, I just don't know yet. I'm just going to say, we're going to take care of you. And, that's what you got. That means if you hand me a 10,000 item set of boxes, 10,000 photos in there, first of all, you don't know it's 10,000 photos, because who does, right?
Right.
So by the time we get them back to our office and we count, we'll know. But the client, I say to them on the first go, if you've got a 10,000 piece project, you're in for $5,000. I
Right.
mean, that's the cost of the project. Is valuable enough to you to move forward, then we're probably the team to help you. If not, okay, think on it, or think about having us coach you so that you can take that very overwhelming 10,000 item collection and get it down to just the essential items that may be 1,000 pieces.
Mhm.
And maybe that's more affordable for you, but you've got to do the work to get there. And we can coach you through that, either through virtual appointments or in-person appointments where we're sitting side by side with you. Still going to end up paying for it, but if they want to do some of the work to reduce the project cost, we're all in for that.
Mhm.
I mean, the
Right.
bottom line is we want people to protect their family heritage or their business heritage, or, the memories that are important to them. We want them to do something with them, because we don't want them to be the victim of an LA wildfire or a
Mhm.
Florida hurricane, or, just a random house fire anywhere in the country, and wish that they had done something earlier. We don't
Yeah,
want that to be our clients.
absolutely. Yeah. And just to put it into perspective for anybody listening and watching here, I remember reading an article years ago about the 800 Photos Project, which basically talks about if you take 10 photos of yourself every year from birth to 80 years old, that's 800 photos. And people think like, oh gosh, 800 that's a lot. And then you break it down like that, 10 photos a year. There's like, I can only imagine how common it is to have tens of thousands of photos
Yeah.
in one's life. Like that is not out of the realm of reason by any stretch of the imagination for the average American person, or not even American person, just average person in general taking pictures. So you can see, if you're a professional organizer listening or watching this, you can easily see how lucrative this will be, because these are important. They're sentimental. People, there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's not necessarily physically taxing. It makes people cry in the best possible way, and you're getting paid really good money. So just putting that all out there, all that aside, you can run a team. I would love to hear a little bit more about, your team, what that kind of looks like, and then we'll talk about some of the common challenges that you guys face. So what does your team look like at this point?
So I run a very lean team. I like a small team. So we're not a factory. I tell people we are a boutique service. So there are factory like scanners out there. You can kind of mail your photos away and somebody handles them. And then some days later you get, a USB back in the mail. We don't operate like that at all. We will, if a client wants me to sit knee to knee with them and hear all their stories, I will do that. We take great pride in being able to go to a client's house and pick things up. And, so myself, my team members, we all, we care a great deal about the work that we do and the work that we do for our clients. So I have, depending on sort of work schedules and, people come in and out. So anywhere between like 3 and 5 employees, not a big team. I choose to have all of my employees cross-trained. So, this week we have an opportunity based on weather and some other cancellations. We have an opportunity to go in and continue to do some household organizing for a client that we all love. So we're all going to go do that. It means nobody's in the office. And then there's other days when, for whatever reason, I don't have clients scheduled, or if a client cancels, has a health problem or whatever, we always have work to do. We have about usually between 4 and 6 weeks worth of work sitting in our office. So that gives us a really good ability to both allow some people to specialize. So I said everybody's cross-trained, but we have people who are, better at the in-home organizing. We have people who are better at the sort of computer work that's here. And there's a place for everybody, but when my team is able to fit in on either of those jobs, then we're pretty nimble. We're profitable for sure. And everybody gets to do the kind of work that they want to do. So that's fun for us. That's how I've built the business. Like a lot of people, I built the business kind of around my family and my kids. So my kids are teens now, but when they were little, I was like, I can mostly work during nap time. That was the reality. Or if I had a sitter, So most of us are moms, and we kind of work the 9 to 3 because we need to be home for the bus pickup. So a lot of flexibility in that regard. And, I put a lot into my employees so that so that we love coming to work. Like I create a place where we love to work. And part of that is working on people's photos. Cause like how, after 10 years or so, how excited can you get about another kitchen? Right.
Right.
But photo
Right.
projects, there's always something new, always something interesting. So there you go.
Yeah, I love that. That was perfectly said. Nothing else needs to be added. You ticked all the boxes. It just sounds so smart, and it sounds very exciting. And I really hope that people listening and watching are starting to kind of get the possibilities with offering this service. So obviously does not come without its challenges. You've touched on a few, obviously the complexity being an issue at some points in time. So what else would you say? What are some other common challenges that you face when organizing large collections of photos and keepsakes, and how do you kind of deal with those?
Well, the one thing, especially from an organizer standpoint, if you're like thinking, do you want to get into this business? The one thing that is very different from home organizing is the investment in both technology and space. So as I mentioned, I've worked out of my home for literally way before it was cool. I was a pioneer in working at home almost 40 years ago. I hate to say that. I've been
Mhm.
around for a while, but way before it was cool, way before we even had like DSL. And I was still working at home when it was a dial up situation. Anyway, forward here, I've invested at this point lots of money. I would say, I don't know, I haven't counted it lately, but definitely thousands, maybe beyond $10,000 into the different computers, the different scanning centers. We now have an office, so I bought office furniture. And that's nice. I love working from my home. It was actually hard for me to go back to an office the first year because I felt like everything I needed was at the office when I was at home,
Mhm.
and then it was vice versa. But I kind of like it now. My 4-year-old is not going, mommy, it's time for a snack. That is a challenge, kind of figuring out how you're going to work. There is an investment in technology in the physical plant of technology, and then also I think I said this a minute ago, but what I tell my team all the time is we are professional problem solvers.
Mhm.
So the technology is finicky. It just is. Ask anybody who's scanning. It is. I joke that 50% of our time is spent keeping our scanners happy.
Mhm.
They require cleaning, they require software updates, they require just a whole bunch of stuff, troubleshooting all the time. And so, if that doesn't appeal to you, if like that whole technology thing doesn't appeal to you, that's okay. I will tell you, I didn't want to scan either. In fact, when I got into this photo organizing business, which I said I didn't want to do,
Mhm.
I absolutely said, I do not want to scan. Like I don't want to stand there being the one to scan, and I don't want to own scanners. That was like my baseline. It's like,
Mhm.
okay, I'll do photo organizing, fine, but I don't want to do scanning. And I worked with partners for a few years. There were a couple of shops that I could send some scanning out to, and I would, send them out in batches. And I was getting them back, and they just weren't the way I would do it. They
Mhm.
weren't up to my standards of quality. I was having to redo things, like redo the digital part of it. And so that's when I was like, okay, for, $1,000, I can invest in the scanner and learn how to use it. And then I just kind of added on from there. But
Mhm.
that piece, I don't want people to say, well, I don't have an office and I don't want to spend money on technology. And, that you can still sort of dip your toe in and be an get to be expert in the thing that you want to be expert in, and then grow from there
Mhm.
if that makes sense for you. And like I said, COVID kind of pushed us over the edge. We were like, all right, yeah, we do photo organizing when we're not doing anything else. But then when that was the only job we wanted to do for a year and we didn't want to go out and see people in person, it was perfect. We were
Right.
already set up.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think just having that engineer's brain, the problem solver instead of the problem stater, as I call it,
Yeah.
is so so important. Just as a business owner in general, but just having that openness and that mindset of flexibility, just allowing yourself to say, "Oh, I can be a lifelong learner. I can learn this new skill." Included in my business. I don't have to like have it perfect from day one. I don't have to do everything right away. You've been doing this, like you said, for over 20 years. So that kind of leads me into my last couple of questions as we wrap up here. Since you have been doing this for so long, this question is particularly pertinent, and I want everybody to perk up their eyeballs and earballs and listen, because I want to hear what advice you have, just based on your perspective, for anybody who is looking to start or level up their organizing business, particularly if this niche of photo and keepsake organizing is interesting to them. What advice would you share with them?
As a business owner, so I coach a lot of business owners, right? Both inside the organizing field and mostly outside, actually, of the organizing field. And I would say, as much as you can, treat your business as a professional business, even if it's small. And I made the decision to keep my business very small when my kids were small. Again, they're now teenagers. But for a long time, I put gates around my time that made sense for me. So I had done the corporate thing. I didn't want to build that again because I wasn't, it didn't serve me. So I did things like I would only travel on Fridays when I had a sort of a nanny person, there all day, and I didn't have to worry about getting back at a certain time. I worked on weekends because my husband had the corporate job. So he was home on Saturday and Sunday and could take care of the kids, right? So on purpose, I kept my business small, but from day one, it was professional. I had business cards. I ran my books because that was I was a business manager in the corporate world, which is not quite finance, it's not quite CPA, but I knew how to run a P&L.
Mm-hmm.
So I did things right away. Like I got myself on QuickBooks and I taught myself how to use it. And that was, again, 20 years ago. QuickBooks was not as fancy as it is now. And after leaving corporate, one of the very first things that I did was I missed my 401k. So I put a retirement plan in place for myself when it was only me in the business. And my first goal every year was to fully fund that retirement plan.
Mm-hmm.
So my point is that even when your business is small, it can be financially positive for your family, even if you're only making, $10,000 a year or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
That the expenses that you don't have and the expenses that you're offsetting in your household, like reduced childcare or not commuting or having a home office, is actually a financial benefit on your taxes. Sort of a side trip here, but
Mm-hmm.
that's actually financially positive to your family's financial well-being. And so even if it's small, you don't have to be running $1 million, $500,000, six-figure business to be respectable and to be an asset in your community, because who else is doing the photo management in your community? Probably not a lot of people, right?
Right.
And that's why I can come on a podcast like this and give away all my secrets, because even if I organized everybody's photos in my hometown, there's still so much business.
Mm-hmm.
I learned this early on, and I did not come from an industry that was really collaborative. So I had to learn this. It was hard.
Mm-hmm.
But we're never competitors with each other. There's so many kitchens, so many closets. How many closets can you organize in a week? Not enough to solve the problem, right?
True.
So even if I digitized everybody's photos in my hometown, there's still the next town over and the next town in the other direction, and those photos are at risk, and we're kind of in a race against time, not against each other,
Mm-hmm.
but we're kind of in a race against time to help people capture their family stories in a way that they can be passed to the next generation. And so advice I would give to a younger person is listen to the people like me who've been around the block and do what they say, because you want to be in business. You want to have a business that you love. You're not building a job, you're building a business that
Right.
serves you, not the other way around. And treat it professionally and be making money, be profitable from early on. And you'll be doing this for a long time and you'll love it, hopefully as much as I do.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that's well said. Very simple, powerful words. People go back and listen and watch again. Very important stuff. I want to end with one fun question because we have to have our James Lipton moment. So, Darla, what is your favorite word and why?
Oh my gosh. I read that one and I didn't prepare on this one. My favorite word, I think maybe for this crowd, curiosity, right?
Mm.
Because there's so much, like, right now, whatever your political landscape is, wherever you are in the business building process, whatever your kids are driving you crazy with today, there's a lot of emotions in the world. And our lives have literally gone so from, like, I grew up in like the 70s and 80s, and like life was literally slower paced then. We are going at such a fast pace now that if we can always try and remember in those, especially in the moments of frustration, but even in the happy moments, just be curious about, like, how things work and why somebody else has a different view, that you thought you had something figured out, and then somebody says something and you think, I wonder why. I mean, I don't agree with them, but I wonder why they think that way. Or, I just heard, like, somebody runs their business a certain way. Like, I wonder what the benefit to that is. If you
Mhm.
could just be curious, you can learn so much. And that's what I think is so exciting about running a business. I actually am one of those strange people that loves running the business as much as doing the work that is in the business. Like, I love
Mhm.
all the payroll and, I love the stupid stuff that everybody else is like, I don't want to do that administrative work,
Yeah.
but it's all problem solving to me. And I think curiosity is how to learn to love every day.
I love that. That is so beautifully said. And I just want to give you that shout out too, because you and I met at the How To Summit over the late summer of September down in Austin, Texas. And I just felt such a kindred spirit. I think you and I have very similar philosophies on life and business. And, I'm happy to have you on the show today, finally, after all those months of preparation and getting that all ready. And I just love that answer and I resonate with so much of it. And just so that you guys are all aware, Darla does have a handful of really awesome resources and offers. So all that information, of course, is going to be down in the description of the YouTube video and the podcast show notes. You're such a wonderful resource, Darla, and I really hope that people reach out to you, whether it be for coaching, whether it be, a special opportunity to learn more about photo management and all these other things. If there's anything else any other resources you want to point people in the direction of, we'd love to hear it before we let you go.
Yeah, we have I'm not sure when this is going to air, but early February, we have an email class coming up, like learn how to organize your email. So I run these classes throughout the year. It's not just an online class, but it's a live format. It's online, but it's live format. So I'm actually teaching it in real time, and it's not thousands of people. It's like dozens maybe of people that are on. So I love doing that because I know for a fact that it's making a difference in people's lives. So, if you don't catch the email class, then I run these classes at different times throughout the year. And I'm happy to have you in my orbit, happy to have you reach out to me for coaching. And, I wish you well. And I definitely wish you well. And if you are a woman business owner or even a male business owner, trying to make a go of something, you're creating something out of nothing. Just, if you don't have voices in your life saying, go for it, and look at how creative you are, then hear me saying it, because it's not easy to start a business, to run a business, and I want to give you all that good energy and keep it going.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Darla. It was such a pleasure to have you on the show today, and I really hope that people reach out to you, and we'll talk soon.
All right, fam, as always, that's going to wrap it up. And I just want to say thank you for spending a little bit of time with us and checking out this episode. I really hope that you got as much value out of it as I did. I really do mean when I say that I learned so much from all of my guests, and I hope you did too. So if you want to connect more with her, make sure that you head down to the description of the video and the podcast show notes. All of her information and her resources are there for you. So definitely take advantage of it, as she pointed out. And don't forget to connect with me for that one-on-one coaching call and take my Overlooked to Overbooked course. Listen, you guys, 40% of people in a survey that I just posted said that they struggle with getting clients. And that is exactly what Overbooked solves for you. So if you have any hesitation, you can always reach out to me to learn a little bit more about it. It's definitely a game changer for those who take it. You can check out my Pro Organizer Forms Pack. Just remember to head to ispeakorganized.com/courses. You can see all of the different course material, one-on-one coaching, and resources that I have available for you to really, truly help you make a go of this thing and do your business right, because I want you to succeed. Your success is my success. As always, make sure that you are in that Facebook group so you can get those questions answered and be part of a thriving and growing community. And beyond that, hopefully at this point you're subscribed. If you're not, hit that subscribe button. And then I just hope you have an awesome day. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Take care.